We're back. That was fast. I promised that we'd make it here for a Tuesday night, one of these weeks, and we've done it. Just about an hour ago, the college football playoff rankings were released for week number 3. So we're right on top of it. Don't forget, we have a link in the description of the video where you can check out our polls. And that is, of course, by going to our Ourlads X account. So we got the link in the description for that. It comes out every Tuesday. Again, that's the goal. And this show is also the goal for Tuesday nights, no later than Wednesdays. As we take a look at the rankings, not only for the college football playoffs, also we're going to take a look at our rankings based on our poll. So let's go right to it. And I'll tell you what we're going to do first. We're going to change things up a little bit here this week. We're going to probably should have done it this way in the first place. Let's take a look at how the polls went on the show. All right, let's check it out.
Show you how, if these were the final ones, how it would project into the bracket. So the college football top 25 playoff rankings brought to you by Goodyear. And look at that, another 10 team sneaking about it.
All right, so there are the first 5. We don't really need commentary for this. Illinois, UNLV, Missouri, Iowa State, Arizona State. Okay, so out of this, so right there, look at that, 4 teams that were not ranked last week. Out of those 4 teams, look, UNLV, probably the only team with a realistic chance of knocking Boise out. All right, now look, Colorado State is playing some pretty good football too. So it's going to be UNLV, Colorado State. One of those 2 teams will face off against Boise in the Mountain West Championship game. And that is the last hope for Tulane, Army. Now, that's right now, because we'll get into Army in a little bit, because Army's got Notre Dame. And all this Boise stuff we've been talking about, seems like forever this season, goes away like that if Army can upset Notre Dame. Because I'd be shocked if Army is not ahead of Boise if they do that. Probably shouldn't say shocked, because this is college football. These are committees, and you know the deal. Okay, so Arizona State, what a great story. This Dillingham kid, I call him a kid because he is. He could be my son. But what a great job he has done there in just a short period of time, just in year 2. Wow, what a job. And that's just awesome. So Arizona State shocked everybody by beating Kansas State, just handily beating them. I mean, who goes to Kansas State and just delivers? I mean, they were shutting them out early. It was just really, I mean, Scottibo's a heck of a talent at running back, but they are proving that, with Levitt, the transfer, quarterback, again, another reason why I think the transfer portal is awesome. The college football, yes, they've got to rein all the other illegalities out, even though they're not really illegal. But you know what I'm saying. And once they do that, I think things will be even better. But anyway, fact is, I'm getting out of here. Great story for Arizona State, because they're not out of it either. Okay, because we've been talking, just like Boise State, we were talking about BYU for so long. And now all of a sudden Colorado's in the mix. But so is Arizona State. All right. Oh, and we are going to talk more about every conference in college football. Mark Lawrence and I are going to do it again on Thursday. So check it out. Thursday night, Mark and I are going to talk about the college football conferences, the championship races, the bowls, the playoffs, and everything. So from the Sun Belt to the SEC. So it should be some good video coming up in a couple of days.
But they've been roaring back strong. Man, I'm a little bit. This is a burger now.
Moving on.
Number 20.
All right, so the next group here, there's Colorado, there's Army. Now, there's Tulane. Okay, so look, I said it last week. I'll say it again, and Tulane just handled Navy pretty simple. And that's the fact that, I think Tulane, Army, right now Army, we'll find out about it. Army doesn't have to beat Notre Dame to prove that they could compete with Boise. They just have to compete with Notre Dame in order to prove that. So I don't really know where Army is yet. Okay, it's similar to Indiana. Army is like Indiana for the group of 5. because schedule-wise, we just don't know how good they are yet. And we're going to find out this week for both teams. But Tulane, I'm telling you right now, Tulane, Boise State, put them in a game, and I'm flipping the coin, 50-50, 100%. And the reason, see, I think this might actually cause, if they can figure it out, a group of 5 championship game to determine who gets into the playoffs. I think that's a lot better than who's the highest ranked team in the group of 5, because it is unfair to Tulane. And what's going to, because look, they've had 2 losses, and who did they lose to? They lost to Kansas State and Oklahoma. Those were a Big 12 team and an SEC team. Boise State, who did they lose to? Well, they lost to Oregon, the only power type, competitive team they played. But what if Boise played a second team? See, they didn't do that. So that's the thing. It's like, maybe if you're Tulane in the future, you say, well, we're not going to play 2 of those games. But then again, I guess if they win one, maybe it does benefit them to get 2 stabs at it. And I'll tell you right now, if Tulane had scheduled Oklahoma late in the season, they'd beat Oklahoma because they're a better team than Oklahoma is right now. But they caught them early in the season. That's the way the schedule breaks sometimes. In Colorado, everybody's getting the story there of Colorado, and we're going to see exactly how that works out. Look, Colorado still has a tough one this week. I said it last week that if Kansas were to upset BYU, remember we said we liked Kansas to do that's going to be a tough one for Colorado, and now it is, because Kansas is desperate to win that football game. Colorado still can find a way to get to the championship game of the Big 12, losing the game. Obviously, they don't want to do that because it becomes a lot more murkier. But still, this is in this situation, the team that really is on the more desperate side is Kansas. And they get the home game situation. So I don't know. I think Colorado might have to think about some of those tiebreakers if they lose this week, because that's what I'm going to bet on. All right, moving on. Oh, before I move on, South Carolina. I said it last week, okay? And I actually, in the Ourlads poll, I did put South Carolina in. Matter of fact, I have South Carolina in my poll 11, and I have Colorado 12. So that's how I have my poll. And I think I have Boise 10. I think that's the way I have it. Let me see. No. That's right. I have South Carolina, Colorado over Boise. That's what I did. Now, look, that doesn't mean that I think Boise State, when it's all said and done, won't find a way and won't deservedly be in the playoffs. But it's just the way I rank it myself is, so I say to myself, all right, well, if South Carolina plays Boise right now, and I know South Carolina's 3 losses, I get that, but South Carolina played a schedule that Boise's not playing. If Boise played South Carolina's schedule, I believe Boise would have the same record. And I believe if South Carolina played Boise, South Carolina would beat them. That's the reason I have them ahead of them. And the same thing with Colorado. But I think Colorado is more of a flip of the coin, to tell you the truth. I think South Carolina, to me, I just love this South Carolina team this year. The story is just awesome. They have just been playing fantastic. They've had one slip up. Other than that, they have been fantastic. Okay, let's move on.
Wants to see right now because they are on fire.
All right, next 5. Or are we going to do? What are we going to do here? We're going to go from
11.
Here it is.
Into the...
So we're going to go 15 to 11 now. All right. So Texas A&M, they better watch out because they are in a battle for the SEC, and they're going to be at Auburn. They're only a 2.5-point favorite, and that is a tricky game for Texas A&M. They got Texas ahead of them, and this Auburn team, said it before, very good defense, looking for that big win. So I think Texas A&M is in for a little bit of a war, so to speak, down in Alabama on Saturday. There's the way it works there for the committee. Interesting that now, and we're going to get into it, that where Tennessee is, you're going to see that even though they're 11th, they're not in the final playoff. There's Boise sitting at 12, but keep in mind, the way this is working out here now, Boise is ahead of BYU, and BYU is the highest ranked Big 12 team. And you're going to see exactly what that means. SMU is sitting there, unfortunately, still behind Miami, but it doesn't matter. Look, you take care of business. Miami takes care of business. You're going to play in the ACC championship game. The winner will be in the playoff. The loser is more than likely not.
Top 10 now. At number 10, Georgia Bulldogs, first team out last week, moving up to number 10 after beating Tennessee. Toughest schedule in the country by far. A lot of them on the road. Dogs at 8-2. At number 9, Hotty Toddy. Now, there is one where just a couple of weeks ago that Ole Miss won the game, so Ole Miss is one spot ahead of Georgia.
And this is a perfect spot. When I saw Tennessee at 11, Georgia at 10, this is a perfect spot for Ole Miss, seeing what they did to Georgia on the field. It wasn't even a close game, so you had to have Ole Miss ranked ahead of Georgia. Great job by the committee.
At number 8, on the road.
All right.
Top 5.
Let's move on. Georgia, Ole Miss, agreed with what they just said. You see the whole situation here. It's interesting because, the whole thing with Notre Dame, and look, I'm not going to, if I'm a fan at Notre Dame, I'm going to be a little bit upset. Hey, why aren't we getting a bye? But hey, this is what happens when you're not in a conference, man. You want to be Notre Dame. You want to be better than everybody else, and you're too good for a conference. We know they would slip into the ACC. They are in the ACC in basketball. So, look, if they were in the ACC in football, they would clearly at this point, well, Miami's there in SMU, but still, they'd be ahead. They'd be getting the bye. But so there you go. I mean, don't blame the committee. Blame your administration. So Notre Dame is still going to be in the postseason unless they lose, and they're still going to have 2 obstacles, Army this week, USC next week. Now, look, either game they could lose. But if they win out, and these are definitely 2 of their toughest games of the season, they've only had 3, when it's all said and done, they will only have played 3 true road games. And not a very stiff competition, but they were good enough to play that first game of the season, which was their toughest game. And they won that game on the road, and that set it all up for them the rest of the season. Because if you lose that game, and we talked about that way back when, if you lose that game, you're just in a tough situation. Even if you win out, it's going to be tough. You can do it, but this is just such a key game. It's an SEC opponent. It's going to say a lot. And then sure enough, the way the schedule broke, it just wouldn't have been any favor for Notre Dame. There just wasn't a lot of good competition. So luckily, they were able to get that team on their schedule to beat them. They were better than Texas A&M. And USC, say, if we're talking about the Trojans next week, that is not a team that is as good as we thought they were going to be. But that doesn't mean USC can't pull up the upset. But that's next week. They're still going to get past Army. And if they can do that, then Notre Dame will be in the playoffs. Just won't be in a bye situation. Okay. Let's move on.
The Indiana Hoosiers. Schedule.
All right. Now what you're going to get here is you're going to get
be Big Ten
you're going to get the rest of the teams here, and then we're going to show the bracket.
Is that they would.
So nothing changes here, but it just, look at this. There are 4 Big Ten teams. Now, how crazy is that? Where are all the SEC teams? But the way it works out, it doesn't matter. Only one of these Big Ten teams are going to be in the top 4. So it just, and then look, Ohio State will play Indiana, it'll take care of itself. Penn State, I tell you what, they're definitely rooting for, actually, they are rooting for Ohio State to win, because they don't want to see Indiana just ranking. I don't see any way Penn State doesn't make the playoffs, but they're just going to keep moving down if Indiana were to win, because Ohio State will stay ahead of Penn State, and that just pushes Penn State even further down, and maybe not even a home game. But we'll see. I don't know if Indiana can beat Ohio State. I think the game will be competitive, and we'll see. I do have them covering. I don't know if they can win, though. Nobody knows if they can win. But I tell you what, they can win. I know a lot of people believe Ohio State is like clearly the number 2 team and Oregon's clearly the number 1 team, but we saw on Saturday night how vulnerable every team is. Now, I had a good conversation with Rob Mosley, the editor of GoDucks.com. And look, he made a great point. Oregon had been playing 8 straight weeks, and they definitely needed a bye. And Tez Johnson was out. They had a couple other key players out. So very important that Oregon got the bye, but they were like, they had reached their limit. They needed that bye. And you could tell the way they played. They were so vulnerable on Saturday night. If they were playing a top 20 team, they lose. But Wisconsin's just not they're just an average team. Average. They're like top 50 team in college football. That's all they are. And Oregon, very fortunate that that's how things worked out for them. That's what you need. Luck on the schedule, a whole bunch of combinations in order for you to have a great season. And that's what Oregon's having right now. But again, Oregon is still, in my mind, you could probably say that there are only a certain amount of teams that on their best day that can beat them. And that's true. But for the most part, being number one for a long time, if they remain number one and stay undefeated and win the Big Ten championship game and all that other stuff, pressure will be there. The pressure, and then they're not going to be playing home games the entire playoffs. So they'll be in the semis, or maybe the championship game, neutral site, pressure. See if they can handle it, and that's what champions are supposed to do. But bottom line is, they are not this juggernaut type of team that is heads above everybody else. And neither is Ohio State and Oregon. They're not the top two, way better than everybody else. Just not the case, in my opinion. I think it should be bracket time, right?
Second in the Big Ten. So they're in the conference championship game, no matter what happens in there. The bracket with the way it looked. Now, this is not a prediction. This is just based on the rankings, how it would look to give you an idea. Conference champions would look like this: Oregon, Texas, Miami, and Boise State.
Look at that. So that is the way it's going to look right there. It is going to be Boise State getting a bye. How about that? Now, it's just right now, all right? And Boise, they got Wyoming on the road. Look, they have Wyoming, and the first thing I was thinking about at this time of year was check the weather, because there's going to be weather issues in Cleveland and the NFL on Thursday night. Check the weather in Wyoming, because if that is a weather game, Boise better watch out, because anything can happen in a weather game. But Boise's in good. They look like they're in pretty good shape, though. And again, as I said before, it looks like it's going to come down to that championship game in the Mountain West on whether or not another team can knock them off and open things up for potentially Army or Tulane. But again, Army has no chance unless they beat Notre Dame, and Tulane obviously also has no chance unless they run the table. And then even if they do, the way things are shaping up right now, as long as Boise doesn't lose, they are going to represent the group of 5. And again, whether you think that's fair or not, that's the reason I think that they should revisit this at some point and have a group of 5 championship game. I don't know if they can fit it in, but at some point I think they should. I really do. I think they should have a game that pits. Look, if it was the way you really want it to be, you'd have like a semifinal. But I don't think they're going to do it. I just think it would be better. I think it would help, because it's just, I think, a little bit unfair if Boise runs the table, Tulane runs the table, and Boise's in, and Tulane, I mean, come on. What did they do wrong? But then again, look, we also talked about the fact that this is what happens, whether you want to consider yourself the second group of 5 team and there's only one that gets in, or the 12th or 11th team like Tennessee. They're 11th ranked and are not getting into a top 12 based on this scenario.
Because of where Boise State is ranked ahead of BYU from the Big 12. So right now, Boise State would, in fact, maybe there might be a ceiling on the ranking, Joey, but on the seeding, they're enough right now to get that other bye. And then BYU is the 5th team in with the automatic bid.
And it brings into question who wins the Big 12,
yes,
who wins the ACC.
Right.
And because these conferences are still wide open, Boise State might have a chance to stay in that 4th spot.
Okay, so let's show you, based on the rankings on the left, who would have home games. Those are the teams that are seeded, not ranked, seeded 5 through 8. Ohio State, Notre Dame, Penn State, Indiana. All would have home games. So let's look at the matchup. Oh, the Big Ten loves the idea of getting some of those SEC teams up in the cold, and all of the SEC teams.
And there you go. All right. So now we're going to talk about this. Matter of fact, let me drop this and put in. Okay, there you go. Okay, so this is the way it's set up now. Just like you saw on the board there. Now, what sticks out? It's so obvious to me. It's Alabama, Notre Dame. Just as I was giddy for the Notre Dame Penn State matchup, I'm equally giddy for Notre Dame, Alabama. I shouldn't say equally. I'd still prefer Notre Dame, Penn State because I've seen Notre Dame, Alabama before, and it wasn't pretty. Penn State, Georgia, we've kind of seen that before as well. You know, the old January 1st Big Ten SEC deal. Indiana, Ole Miss, that would be okay. Tell you the truth, that might even be if both. See, the problem is, what you see down there with Indiana 7, it's just not going to happen. Okay, I mean, chances are this: if Indiana loses, they're out. You don't even see them in the board. If Indiana beats Ohio State, they're higher than 7. Now they're up there where Ohio State is at 5. And how about that? Imagine if you're like, imagine you are BYU and you go, whoa, wait a second. We get Indiana. That's a winnable game. Maybe we can get to the semis. That's a winnable game. And then look who they would play. Boise. So just imagine that. If Indiana were to upset, and Indiana upsets Ohio State and finishes 5th, and you have Indiana BYU with the winner playing Boise. Wow. That would be something, wouldn't it? Be like, wait a second. Wait a second. Really? I mean, I get a chance to go to the championship game? You know, it's not like I got Ohio State or Oregon in the way. I've got to realize I got a shot. And I'd love it. I'd absolutely love it to see a line that had BYU, Indiana, and Boise. Boy, would that be awesome. Because one of those teams would be getting awfully close to a championship situation. And then what's the other potential matchups? I don't want to get too far into this because this is still just going to open things up. I guess the one that would stick out if we're just looking at this bracket here would be Oregon saying to themselves, wait a second, we're the number 1 seed and then we have to play the Notre Dame, Alabama? Yeah. This is the whole thing about the rankings. Whether you're 1 through 4, like for instance, right there, we just talked about it. Boise, Oregon. Now, let's say Indiana is 5. Oregon would be saying to themselves, wait a second, we have to play the winner of Notre Dame, Alabama, and Boise gets the winner of Indiana, BYU? That doesn't seem right. So if something like that were to work out, probably not. But if something like that works out this year, next year, they might say to themselves, you know, what does it matter whether we're 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th? As long as we get a bye. That's all that's going to matter. Just get the bye. Don't worry if you're 1, 2, 3, 4. Just do that because, look, it's just a random draw on who we're going to get to play. All right, now let's take a look at our Ourlads poll. And our rankings, playoff rankings. Now, what's different? Nothing. For the 2nd straight week, nothing is different. I love it. Now, maybe I shouldn't, right? Because we always talk about how the committee sucks. But now we're the committee. But seriously, how awesome is that? I guess we should be proud, right? That we have the rankings exactly and exactly the way that the committee does. So it's not like we've done. And look, there are some of us that have made a lot of different. We have a lot of difference of opinion. I'll give you my own. Okay, I have Ole Miss number 2. Now again, why would I not? Now again, remember this: when we put our poll together, we're not predicting the final poll or anything like that. Or we're just predicting who we think are the top 12 teams each week. And I think Ole Miss is. That's why I have them second. And most of the pollsters don't have Ole Miss any higher than, like, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, something like that. So you're going to see, matter of fact, if I just go through the polls here that I'm looking at myself, see if because there are some others out there that probably will stick out if I look. Let's see. Let's see. Tony has Boise 5th. How about that? He doesn't need the automatic. He just thinks Boise's the 5th best team in the country. Tony Mejia. Tony's a handicapper for Playbook Experts YouTube channel and playbooksports.com. And let's see, any other weird ones or funny ones stick out? I know last week Dave had Army 12th, but he just replaced him with Colorado this week. So I guess I had the weirdest one with Ole Miss, but I just think they are, like I said last week, and I'm going to hold to it. But we're going to go over this as well when we get a chance. Matter of fact, I might even have another video coming out based on predictions. I want to do that. We're going to do that real soon. Maybe it is this week, and just predict everything the way I believe the rankings will look. So maybe we'll do that. Either way, we're going to have tons of videos that you want to check out. And hold on a second, just double checking. Okay, yeah, I knew there was something there. Okay, so yeah, we have tons of videos coming out, not just on rankings and things of that nature. I mean, that's the least of what we do here at Ourlads and the Ourlads Football Network, Ourlads Football YouTube channel. Please share, subscribe. All that stuff is really cool and important. Matter of fact, comments are also very important. If you think I'm a complete idiot, just let me know. But be a little bit more professional and than I just was to myself. But yeah, let us know what you think. And if you have any comments, questions at all that kind of stuff is really cool. You also want to check out the Ourlads Insider. That is something that we have been working on. It's taken a while, a little bit longer than we wanted to, but the Ourlads Insider was finally put together about a few weeks ago. And so, we're pretty stoked about that. And I know I kind of talked about how one of the things that's really cool about it is you get to not have to worry about ads on the Ourlads. When you're searching through Ourlads, there's a lot of ads and things of that nature. You don't have to worry about that. And that is very cool. No question about it. But it's just part of it. Also, you got to keep in mind the thing that the reason we really put it together is because I know everybody loves Ourlads because of the depth charts and how quickly we update the depth charts. But this is also important, and that is the fact that if you're a part of the Insider program, you're going to get real-time depth chart updates. Okay, so if there are moves made and you're a fantasy guy or you just want to know for gambling purposes exactly what's going on with a roster, well, we'll let you know. As soon as we update the depth chart, you'll know. And you don't have to, hey, you're busy all day, you got work. You don't have to wait till later that day. Maybe you don't have access, you just didn't have time. You'll get a notice. Hey, wait a second, that's awesome. Maybe I can do something about it right now, and I didn't even think about it. I wasn't going to think about it. I was going to miss this. Now I don't have to miss it. So that's something that's really very important. So that's pretty awesome. There's also AI analytics. No, I am not personally into it, but look, I'm also almost 60 years old. So I know a lot of people who are. So check it out. And I think you can have a lot of, you could just lose your mind with the analytics that we have there. There's also a player performance simulator. So you can explore scenarios like injuries, trades, see the impact on team performance. It's really cool. It's a 1-year subscription. I think it's like $25 a year. So that's it. One payment, you're done for the entire year. You get all these updates, and we're just going to keep building on it as well. We're working on that to make your experience of if you purchase anything really cool. Where we can, because we got the draft guide, of course, coming out for 2025. So we've got several of those that come out every year. We've got all the videos now. Scouting is going to be taking up so much of our time once the season's over, but we're already starting to work on that. All right. If you take a look, you're already seeing videos that we're putting out on player profiles. So get a head start on the draft by checking us out and making sure that you subscribe here to Ourlads YouTube channel. So that's going to wrap it up. Again, I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you again with one of these videos next week. And I know my schedule, I just interviewed Mark Carman, who is a Chicago radio host for the Bears. So we had a good conversation. That's available here on the channel, talking about Caleb Williams, their new OC, and a bunch of other topics. I also interviewed, actually, I'm interviewing, because I already told you about Rob Mosley from Oregon. That's on the channel. But next week, I am interviewing Kyle Kelly from On3 for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So even if they lose to Army, I don't think they will be. I think it's going to be a competitive game. I really do. Not like the Navy game. That Army game, that quarterback stays healthy. Okay, that is going to be a very competitive football game, and Army can beat Notre Dame. I'm just, law of averages. Notre Dame probably going to win. They are a 16-point favorite. So even if they were to lose, interview's still on because there's still a lot that I want to talk about with Kyle. Kyle does a great job with the recruiting at Notre Dame. I'm sure a lot of fans would want to know about that. So that's next week. So we're going to have a bunch of these interviews that are going to be something that I want to definitely dive into because we're getting real close towards the end of the season here, not just for playoff reasons and that, but there are some teams like the Bears at some point might be thinking about the draft already making changes, the Jets making changes. So, I want to be able to make sure, not just me, of course, but everybody on staff at Ourlads wants to make sure that you guys are up to speed on what's going on with the rosters. That's what's so awesome about being here at Ourlads and being an insider, being part of that club, and just being part of our family, is that if you're a football fan, especially you got NFL, college football, that merge as far as, following the players from true freshmen all the way. And that's one of the things that, again, we're going to be putting videos on that real soon. I'm going to be talking about true freshmen, redshirt freshmen, sophomores. These are the guys that have had great seasons, that could have really good careers coming up. So, we've got that. We've got our lead scouts looking at already at the upperclassmen, the guys that are going to be eligible for the draft. So, and again, we're handicapping games. We're talking fantasy. By the way, my camera's shaking because my cat just jumped off my table. I am purchasing a new camera, by the way, so hopefully that won't be an issue anymore. Anyway, so that's what I've said. I mean, Ourlads, if you're a football fan, fantasy-wise, you like to wager on football, you just love to track the sport, this is the place for you. So make sure, if anything, to subscribe to the channel and of course, go to Ourlads.com where you can check out a bunch of stories that are out and going to continue to be out for as long as we're at Ourlads, I guess, right? Anyway, I'm out of here. It's getting late. I'm starting to talk a little bit too much. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.